Roti Canai is a multi-layered flatbread from Malaysia. The real magic is in its texture. A crisp, crackly exterior flakes apart to reveal a multitude of tender layers inside. This video is gonna be the most detailed guide to Roti Canai on the internet. Stick around and I'll take you step by step through 1. Making the dough, 2. Stretching the dough both the fancy way and the beginner-friendly way, 3. Shaping the multi-layered roti, 4. Cooking it to crisp perfection, 5. Whipping up a really easy super coconutty curry dip, 6. Freezing and storing so that you're never more than 5 minutes from eating delicious, fresh roti. Roti Canai's paper-thin layers are created by stretching dough to its very limits. The pros do this through a series of gravity-defying tosses. This skill can only be mastered through time and practice. In addition to that, their dough formulas are closely guarded trade secrets. I've tried basically every published Roti Canai recipe out there, and unfortunately have never been able to get great results. It always felt like I was fighting the dough. Instead of working with me and stretching nice and thin, I'd end up with rotis that were dense and gummy. I finally had enough and decided to take matters into my own hands. I scrapped everything and started from the ground up. Roti dough at its heart is very simple, mainly flour and water, plus some optional additions for texture and flavor. But because of the simplicity, all of the elements must be in perfect balance with each other. I poured my heart and soul into this, making batch after batch after batch of dough, tweaking one single variable at a time. At first, my rotis ranged from not so great to thoroughly mediocre. But slowly, things started coming together. After taking the recipe through 30 plus iterations, shaping over 200 individual balls of dough, going through almost an entire 10-kilogram bag of flour, I finally cracked the code. After all of that work, I'm so excited to finally be able to share this recipe with you. My very best Roti Canai. Okay, enough talking, let's get cooking. To a large mixing bowl, add 300 milliliters lukewarm water, 60 grams condensed milk, 35 grams melted butter or ghee, 12 grams fine sea salt, and 20 grams granulated sugar. Stir it all together until well combined. Condensed milk tenderizes the dough and adds flavor. If you're looking for a vegan dairy-free option, I'll put all the details for that in the written recipe, which will be in the description below. Next goes in 600 grams all-purpose flour. Stir this as much as possible, then switch to hands to bring the dough together. Here in Canada, all of our flours are strong with a high gluten content. If in the United States, use King Arthur all-purpose flour or a regular brand bread flour to get a similar result to Canadian all-purpose. If in Canada, don't use bread flour, it'll make the roti too tough. If there's lots of dry flour left at the bottom of the bowl, add up to 3 teaspoons of water to help the dough come together. I ended up using about 2 more teaspoons of water. Knead only until all the dry flour is incorporated and the dough is lump-free. The dough should still be shaggy. It'll be soft in texture and slightly tacky. See how some of the dough sticks to my hand, but not too much? Cover and let the dough rest for 15 minutes. After resting, the dough will be noticeably more elastic. Now knead the dough until smooth. This should only take about 30 seconds or so. Divide into 10 equal parts. If weighing, each portion should be around 100 grams. Form the dough into smooth balls. Gather everything in the center and pinch together. Then flip around and roll with a lightly cupped hand until smooth and round. Spread a generous amount of oil all over a sheet tray. Liberally coat each dough ball with oil to prevent it from sticking and drying. Cover the tray tightly and let the dough rest. This rest period is critical because the gluten needs to relax so that the dough is malleable enough to stretch. The dough needs 1 hour minimum at room temperature. For best results, let it rest for 3 hours at room temp. For even better results, place the tray in the fridge and let the dough chill overnight. The next day, take it out of the fridge an hour ahead so that the dough can warm up again before proceeding. Roti Canai has its origins in India and was brought to Malaysia by migrant workers in the 19th century. It's a direct descendant of Parotta, which is a flatbread commonly found in India's southern states. Roti is a loanword from various Indian languages and means bread. Chennai is the Malay spelling of Chennai, which is a city in Southeast India. Roti Canai is also popular in Malaysia's neighboring countries where it goes by slightly different names. Roti Paratha in Singapore, Roti Mariam in Indonesia, simply roti in Thailand. In Malaysia, hot fresh roti canai is eaten either on its own with a dip, often a lentil curry, or as part of a meal accompanying a main curry dish. Today we're making a quick curry dip to serve with the roti to get all of the flavor without having to go to the effort of actually making a full-on curry. Instead of using a Malaysian curry paste, which can be kind of hard to source, I'm going to show you how to repurpose a Thai red curry paste, which should be much easier to find in the Asian section of most grocery stores. Thai red curry paste shares many of the same ingredients with Malaysian curries, such as shallots, lemongrass, galangal, chilies, etc. What's missing are the warm spices found in most Malaysian curries due to an Indian influence. Add a half cup full-fat coconut milk to a small pan over medium heat. Cook the coconut milk for about 5 minutes until it's reduced, thick, and bubbly. This will concentrate so much coconut flavor into our curry. Add in 2 tablespoons of Thai red curry paste. Fry the curry paste for a few minutes until a vibrant red oil separates out. Once that happens, add in a 1/4 teaspoon turmeric and a 1/2 teaspoon of garam masala. Briefly stir and cook for about 20 seconds to extract fat-soluble flavors from the spices. No more than that though, because powdered spices will begin to burn. Immediately add in another 1/2 cup coconut milk, 1/4 cup water, and a few dashes fish sauce. Let it bubble away for 5 minutes for the flavors to melt together. Stir occasionally so that nothing sticks. You see that beautiful red oil floating on the curry? The oil carries so much flavor and will coat the roti with every dip. Finish with a 1/4 teaspoon sugar. Taste to see if it needs any more salt. Mine was perfect, but depending on the curry paste, it may need more seasoning. The final curry sauce should have the same consistency as whipping cream. Remember, it'll thicken as it cools. If it gets too thick, simply thin it out with some water. Stretching and tossing. This is the most important part of making great roti canai. Work on the smoothest surface possible with at least 3 feet by 3 feet of working area. Have ready a small bowl filled with about a 1/3 cup of neutral oil. Spread a thin layer of oil all over the entire work surface. Place down a ball of rested dough, add some more oil over top. Use a smooth smearing motion with the heel of the hand to thin out the dough. Work from the center out. Aim for a circle about the size of a dinner plate with even thickness throughout. Once at size, time to start flipping. Start with the hands together. Dominant hand face up and non-dominant hand face down. I'm right-handed, so my right hand is facing up. The hand facing up will go under the dough and the other hand on top. Gently grip with the thumbs. Keep the other fingers flat to evenly distribute pressure. Imagine you're holding a large plate so that the hands stay parallel to each other. The toss will go in the direction of the non-dominant hand. Bring both hands towards that shoulder, then briskly swing them down back towards the counter, keeping the hands parallel throughout the entire motion. Go fast on the way down. It's the momentum that stretches the dough. The goal is to have the dough land evenly without creasing or folding over. If the dough does fold, smooth it out before moving on to the next toss. The hands start out close to each other, but as the dough grows in size, so does the distance between the 2 hands. This allows for maximum control over the dough. With each subsequent toss, rotate the dough slightly so that we're stretching all the way around the perimeter. It'll feel kind of weird at first, but after a few rotis, you'll get the hang of it. If any holes appear, don't worry, that's totally normal. There's a tricky balance between tossing firmly enough to be effective, while keeping a gentle enough touch so as to not tear the dough. Once the center of the dough is thin and translucent, we can move on to the next step. Now we have to stretch the edges of the dough and any other parts that remain thick so that the whole surface is even and translucent. Any thick portions left will interfere with the final texture of the roti. Lightly pull with the fingertips, barely even gripping. Be patient here, go gently but firmly and stretch as thin as possible. There will still be a tiny portion of thick dough left around the edges. Go around with the heel of the hand and smudge out this border to thin it out. If I'm feeling lazy, instead of using the smudging motion, I'll just tear off the thicker edge. Tug on only the border and it'll naturally rip off. To stretch the dough without tossing, start with a rolling pin. Roll it as thin as it'll go. Because we didn't toss, the center of the dough isn't thinned out. Stretch the center by placing a flat palm underneath the dough. Hold the opposing side on top with the other hand. Slowly pull away with the hand underneath. Instead of gripping, let the friction of the dough weigh itself down. Be patient and go slowly. Keep repeating this motion in different directions until the dough is translucent all over and evenly stretched out. This method is a bit slower, but makes for a dough sheet that's just as thin as tossing. Scatter some oil onto the stretched out dough. Gently lift up one side of the dough and fold it towards the center. Fold the opposite side towards the center as well. The two sides should meet in the middle, overlapping slightly. If the edges of the dough roll back or bunch up, unroll it and smooth it out to avoid dense sections. Fold the left and right sides towards the center as well, overlapping slightly. What we're left with should be a neat square or rectangle. Flip it over so that the bottom is face up. Smooth a bit more oil all over. Set the roti aside to rest while we shape the other dough balls. Preheat a non-stick skillet over medium-low heat for about 2 minutes. Cook the roti in the order that you shaped them. Right before cooking, give each roti one final stretch out. Smush and stretch from the center out, focusing on any thicker sections. Try to make the roti evenly translucent all over. This step is one that many recipes skip, but is actually the key to getting the thinnest layers possible. Add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil or ghee to the skillet. Once the oil is lightly shimmering, place in the stretched roti. Ghee will lend a really nice buttery flavor without the risk of burning like with butter. If using oil, we'll add butter to the pan at the very end of cooking for flavor. If the roti puffs up, use a spatula to gently press it down so that it cooks evenly. Cook on the first side until it's golden brown, then flip over. The roti's texture will vary depending on how much oil is in the pan and how brown the roti gets. Lots of oil plus extra browning will create a really crispy, flaky roti. Less oil and less browning will make for a roti that's softer yet still lightly crisp. Generally, the second side won't take as long to cook. If cooking with oil and not ghee, when the second side is just starting to color, add in a small knob of butter and swirl it around to melt. Make sure that both sides of the roti get to soak up some butter. Once golden on both sides, transfer the roti out of the pan. Wipe out the skillet with paper towel and add fresh oil before cooking another roti. You may be thinking, hey, wait a second, this looks nothing like the flaky wonder that I promised. Well, once the roti comes out of the pan, let it rest for a few moments to cool a bit, then vigorously and firmly clap the roti between two hands. Careful, because it may still be hot. You can use a tea towel to protect your hands, or just go for it, but please don't sue me if you burn yourself. This process transforms the roti into its final form, breaking up the crisp exterior and fluffing up all of the layers inside. Really go for it. Clap and fluff to your heart's content. There's no overdoing it. The roti will blossom into a glorious heap of crisp flakes and tender layers. Roti Canai is best when it's hot and fresh. There's no elegant way to do this. Tear off a piece of roti, dunk it into the curry sauce, then slam the whole thing into your face. It's literally an explosion of flavor and texture. You'll experience the full spectrum here, from flaky crisp to soft, chewy pull. The flavor is lightly sweet, that of wholesome simple starch, imbued with deep butteriness. The curry dip is so vibrant, spicy, fragrant, pungent, and complex, rich with coconut. The curry soaks into each bite of roti, enhancing yet not overshadowing. I truly can't think of a more perfect bite of food. Roti Canai can be frozen and cooks up to taste literally just as good as fresh. That means future you can have fresh roti in like 5 minutes. After the roti has been shaped and rested, give each one a final stretch out as if about to cook it. Stack them on a tray, placing parchment paper between each roti to prevent sticking. Cover the tray tightly and freeze for several hours until all the rotis are hardened. Finally, transfer all of it to a freezer bag and seal it up tight. They'll be good for at least 3 months in the freezer. The roti can be cooked straight from frozen. Because it's so thin, it thaws almost instantly in the pan. And ta-da! Roti Canai in less than 5 minutes. Be sure to whip this out anytime you're craving a snack or want to impress a guest. Now that's what I'm talking about. I really hope that you give this recipe a try. It truly was a labor of love. And might I add, after eating roti every day for 3 weeks straight while testing this recipe out, I'm still not sick of it. Now that should tell you something. As always, full written recipe can be found in the description box. Before you go, here are 2 more life-changingly delicious bread recipes that you won't want to miss out on.